In this video I will show you how I made this flat tire from this.
You bought yourself a plastic kit on a scale model car. You don't know what to do with it, but who will help you for
Hi there, you scale model kit lovers, and welcome in my super tiny shed. And a happy 2022 to you, and I hope you will enjoy watching this Hobby Robbie channel this year too. This vlog is all about how to make a flat tire on your car model. In my case, on my Tamiya Morris Mini Cooper. This is a technique I learned from a Japanese modeler called Satoshi Araki, and I thought you might want to know how it's done. So, are you pumped already? The tires in the Morris Mini Cooper kit by Tamiya are made of genuine rubber. Some brands have vinyl tires and I don't like them, but these look and feel very nice. And they roll pretty good too. There is a seam line down the middle of the thread which has to be removed, so that is step number 1. Having the rim in the tire makes it easier to sand down the mold line. I don't like to do this with the machine, but prefer doing it by hand to have maximum control. Now, let's make the tire flat. Some modelers on YouTube use a paint stripper for this. Or a lighter. I don't like both of these options as they can destroy your tire very easily. The method I learned from Araki is to cut up the tire. Very gentle, of course. You make cuts just behind the walls of the tire, they should stay intact. I considered using chisels to remove the piece of rubber, but decided to go with the hobby knife. When it's removed, you have a U-shaped tire when looking at it head on, but the front and back are still round. Now I want to make the tire appear as it is flat, and I use a piece of styrene sheet for that. A jelly type super glue will make this bond. First, I try a dry fit. The walls of the tire are now thin and wobbly, and you don't want them to slip out to the outside. Instead, you want the wall to stay beneath the tire and thus force it to have a better shape like a real flat tire has. This takes some practice, and you will see me do it right on one side and a bit wrong on the other side in a minute. I hold the tire on the plastic sheet for a few minutes to give the jelly super glue time to dry. Afterwards, I use a kicker to make the bond really hard. Here you can clearly see that the inside of the tire has slipped out. It's not a big problem, but I think it looks nicer when the wall stays underneath the tire. I cut off the excess plastic card with scissors as close to the edge of the tire as I can get. The fine work is done by the knife. We don't want to see the strip of plastic underneath our tire, do we? So I sand it down as thin as possible. I think the tire has a nice stance. I fill up the gaps between the plastic card and the tire with leftover rubber pieces. Mr. Hobby Tire Black is my to-go-to color, for obvious reasons, to paint the edges of the plastic card to make it practically invisible. Time for the rims to get a treatment. As a base I always use Tamiya Surface Primer Grey mixed 50-50 with lacquer thinner retarder type of the same brand. You can have quite a discussion about how to replicate oxidized aluminium in a right color. I chose not to use any metallic colors, but to go for a flat grey. Vallejo Model Air colors need a bit of thinning in my humble opinion, and certainly must have a few drops of flow improver to prevent tip dry. Because this paint can give you some headaches if you don't.
Hobby Robbie!
Oxidized aluminium looks not only dull and grey, but also has those typical white spots. A method of applying those specks is using the splatter or speckling technique. I landed the needle from my airbrush and smeared it with some white paint. By gently rubbing over the needle with your brush, small speckles will fly off it and hopefully land on the rim. Be careful not to add too much paint on your needle because the speckles will be huge then. I wasn't too happy with the off-white color of Vallejo as it doesn't have great covering capabilities. So I tried Citadel Corax White, which is known to have a lot of pigment, as you can clearly see.
Oh man. I tried to mix it with the electric mixer and... well, I've got splatter all over my hands. That worked.
But speckling this paint is quite hard because of its high pigment count. It dries pretty fast as there is not much thinner in it, and it's heavy so it won't fly easily, so to speak. Eventually I went on to use an acrylic primer which does the job perfectly. A grey enamel wash is ideal to give the recesses more depth and shadows. Can any of you guys and gals tell me what type of rim this actually is? Because I could only find one picture of it on the web. I would like to add an air valve to the rim, but I don't know where to place it. I still wanted more speckles, so I hand painted some of them by using the Citadel paint. As I've said before, I like to use a big brush as it loads up more paint. Brushes like these have very sharp points, so you can still do very detailed work with it whilst not having to dip it in the jar after every dot. I assume the center of the rim is made of metal, hence I painted it rusty brown. The bolts got a lighter rust tone. I applied another grey wash to make the shadows a bit starker. And with that, stage 1 of the weathering is done.
Robbie.
My Mini will be in a small field in the diorama, so the tires will be dirty. I picked Birmingham in the UK as a location and I studied ground colors at that place. By the way, you mostly get news pictures of polluted soil when googling. I mix different pigment types until I get a desired look, putting a bit of Vallejo airbrush thinner on my brush and then dab it into the mix of pigments. This is a bit of a rough business, but that doesn't matter because we will adjust that later. Just smear a bit of thinner on places where you want the tire to be cleaner and dab pigments off it with a cotton bud or your brush. Tires are quite heavy, you know. So this working with pigments is rather simple and you can correct it at your liking. Just use more thinner if you want it to be less dirty, or add some pigments to the thinner if you want it to be dirtier. You really can't go wrong here. I think it is nice how all the details on the tire get highlighted because of the pigment that stays behind it, as you can see on the tire thread and the raised letters on the sidewall. MIG oil brushes may look like a tool for the eyelashes of your girlfriend, but actually are very handy. Of course you can use the oil paints like Abteilung 502, but with these you don't have to wait until the oil has drained out. You can use it right away. As my Mini is dying in a field, algae will be present. I dab a bit of the paint on a scrap piece of plastic and then dilute it with odorless thinner. The algae will be there where the rainwater tends to accumulate the most. The MIG oil paint dries way quicker than Abteilung 502 paint or the like, but you still have plenty of time to adjust the amount of paint, more than using acrylic pigments. Lastly, I add some Starship filth, as you know there are plenty of starships around Birmingham. No, it's just a nice color to add road dirt and the brake dust look. I think we are ready for some end shots, aren't we? I hope you liked what you saw, and if you did, would you please gently touch that thumbs up button below the video? You can also help to make this show possible by supporting me on Patreon. This will get you lots of goodies. If you want to know how to do rust weathering, click this video. And this video is cool too. It really is. Come on, click.
I've been rubbing.